Someone is going to test you today. Maybe they already have. A remark that lands wrong. A challenge you never saw coming. A room full of people watching your face for a reaction, and you gave them one. Not the one you wanted, the one fear chose. Hours later, replaying it, you already knew exactly what you should have said. The ancient Stoics had a name for that gap between the moment and the response. They called it the unguarded door. And today, we are going to close it permanently. Not with cleverness, not with rehearsed comebacks, but with something far more powerful. Philosophical grounding so deep that no person, no room, no ambush will ever find you unprepared again. Today I am giving you 10 responses, grounded in ancient Stoic wisdom, that will not just silence the room, they will silence the noise inside you first. Before we get into the 10, we need the foundation. Because without it, these are just words, and words without philosophy are just performance. Epictetus, the man born into slavery, whose leg was deliberately broken by a master testing the limits of human endurance, left us this: it is not events that disturb us, but the judgments we place upon them. Read that slowly. He is not saying that cruelty does not sting. He is saying that the sting is not mandatory. Between the word that is thrown at you and the wound you feel from it, there is a space, and inside that space lives your power. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals he never intended anyone to read. You have power over your mind, not outside events. A man who commanded the most powerful empire on earth chose to write about the only power that truly mattered. Today, we claim that power together. Response number 1 is to say, I may be wrong. 3 words, and I want you to sit with the discomfort of them for a moment, because every instinct in you will resist them. Every instinct will say that admitting you may be wrong is the same as losing. The Stoics believed the precise opposite. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, commander of legions, the most powerful man in the known world, wrote in his private journal that if anyone could show him he thought or acted in error, he would gladly change. He was not performing modesty. He was practicing one of the most demanding disciplines in Stoic philosophy, releasing the attachment to being right in favor of an attachment to truth. When you say I may be wrong, genuinely, calmly, without theater, you remove the target. There is nothing for aggression to push against, and you simultaneously signal something that unsettles every person who came to destabilize you. I am not afraid of being wrong, which means I am not afraid of you. That is not weakness. That is iron. Response number 2 is silence. You are expecting a sentence, and I am giving you the absence of one. Because the Stoics understood something that most people today have completely forgotten. Not every provocation deserves a response. Seneca wrote about the discipline of withdrawal, not as cowardice, but as strategy, as philosophy, as the practiced refusal to feed what does not deserve to be fed. When someone launches a verbal attack, they are initiating a transaction. They want something from you, your anxiety, your scrambling, your justification. Silence starves the transaction, but I am not speaking of cold silence, not the silence of sulking or the silence of fear. Stoic silence is something entirely different. It is the silence of someone who has fully heard what was said, evaluated it, and found it insufficient to require a voice. When you respond immediately and emotionally, you hand someone a map of your interior, every button, every wound, every trigger. When you meet provocation with measured stillness, you reveal nothing. You remain free. Response number 3 is to say, that is an interesting perspective. This one requires the most genuine philosophical discipline because it asks you to do something most high-achieving women find almost impossible: to engage without absorbing, to acknowledge without agreeing, to stay in contact with someone's reality without being pulled into it. It does not say you agree. It does not say you disagree. It does not confer validity or strip it away. What it says is this: I have registered your position, and I am choosing deliberately not to make it my problem. Epictetus called it diastema, the interval, the space, the breath between the impression and the response. And in that space, you remain sovereign. Now, this response must be genuine to work. The Stoics had no patience for performance dressed as philosophy. If you say that is an interesting perspective while internally seething, you have learned nothing. The point is to mean it, to genuinely position yourself as someone who finds the diversity of human opinion interesting rather than threatening. That is what a Stoic means when they say it. Response number 4 is to say, let me think about that. We live inside a culture that has weaponized speed, react in real time, fill every silence, never appear caught off guard. And the Stoics, 2,000 years before anyone could broadcast their reaction to a million strangers, identified this urgency as one of the most reliable paths to error. Seneca wrote, I will keep constant watch over myself and put each day up for review. Let me think about that does several things at once, and all of them are Stoic. First, it honors logos, the rational faculty, the capacity for reason that the Stoics considered the most sacred human attribute. A rushed response lets ego speak before reason has assembled itself. Second, it disarms the person in front of you, because most people came expecting resistance, not respect, and they do not know what to do when they receive it. Third, it grants you access to what Marcus Aurelius called hypomony, patient endurance, the willingness to sit in the discomfort of not yet knowing, without reaching for noise to cover it. That kind of patience is not passivity. It is power that has learned to be still. Response number 5 is to say, you might be right. Notice the distinction between this and response 1. Response 1 was inward, an acknowledgement of your own fallibility. This one moves outward, extending genuine openness toward another person's position. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoic philosophy, held that the philosopher who enters a debate hoping to win has already failed, because the goal was never to win. The goal was always truth. You might be right, said genuinely, with no agenda attached, models what the Stoics called eunoia, goodwill, the sincere desire for someone else's thinking to illuminate something real, and it repositions the other person's view from a threat to a live possibility. Seneca wrote, the first step toward goodness is wanting to be good. The parallel in conversation is this: the first step toward a real exchange is wanting to be changed by it. If you enter every interaction already decided, you are not conversing, you are performing. And the Stoics had no patience for that. Response number 6 is to ask, what outcome are we both trying to reach? This response shifts the frame from contest to purpose. Marcus Aurelius returned again and again in his meditations to the concept of sympathia, the interconnectedness of rational beings. He believed that beneath every conflict between people who both possessed reason, there was a shared aim that, once named, made the conflict itself seem smaller and less necessary. When someone comes at you with heat, they are almost always focused on position, being right, being heard, winning ground. When you respond with what outcome are we both trying to reach, you step out of position and into purpose, and most people, once the ego level of a conversation is bypassed, want the same things: results, respect, resolution. This response is not a deflection, it is a redirection from the level of the fight to the level of the goal. And at the level of the goal, you are no longer opponents. You are collaborators. Response number 7 is to tell yourself this does not require my reaction. This one is rarely spoken aloud. It is primarily an internal response, a Stoic intervention you perform on yourself in the half second before you open your mouth and say something you will spend a week regretting. But sometimes, said calmly and without drama, it can also be spoken. And when it is, it carries enormous power. Epictetus called it prohoresis, the faculty of moral choice, the will, the part of you that decides what deserves your energy and what does not. He considered it the entire terrain of human freedom, everything else, your reputation, other people's opinions, what was said about you in a room you were not in. He placed in the category of to ektos, external things, things not ultimately yours to carry. This does not require my reaction is you exercising the one freedom no person on earth can take from you, the choice of what to give yourself to. Said with quiet steadiness, it does not read as avoidance. It reads as the most confident thing in the room. Response number 8 is to say, I hear what you are saying, and I am choosing my response carefully. This is the response for the high-stakes room, the boardroom ambush, the performance review that became something else entirely, the public challenge from someone who wanted an audience for your discomfort. Marcus Aurelius described the discipline of seeing what is happening inside you with precision, rather than being swept along by it. Not just, I am angry, but something far more specific. I am feeling a surge of heat because I perceive that as a public diminishment, and I need 3 more seconds before I speak. I am choosing my response carefully signals 3 things simultaneously: that you heard them, that you are not afraid, and that whatever comes next will be deliberate. In high-pressure environments, deliberateness is the most expensive thing in the room. Most people are reacting. You are deciding. That distinction is everything. Response number 9 is to say, tell me more. 2 words, and perhaps the most counterintuitive response on this entire list. Because when someone challenges you, the last thing your nervous system wants to do is invite them to continue. But the Stoics were deeply suspicious of the first impression. Epictetus called it the phantasia, the appearance of a thing as opposed to the thing itself, and he taught relentlessly that the examined impression was almost always different from the unexamined one. Tell me more does something remarkable. It treats the person in front of you as a source of information rather than a source of threat, and that repositioning changes everything. The temperature of the exchange, the defensiveness of the other person, and your own internal state. Because once you become genuinely curious, you cannot simultaneously be afraid. Curiosity and fear cannot occupy the same interior space at the same time. Choose curiosity, and you dissolve the fear completely. Response number 10 is to say thank you for telling me. This is the hardest one. Not because it is linguistically complex, it is only 4 words, but because to mean it To say it without irony, without performance, without swallowing something bitter first, requires the deepest philosophical grounding of everything we have covered today. The Stoics practiced what they called amor fati, the love of what is, the embrace not just of what is pleasant, but of what is difficult, what is uncomfortable, what strips away the comfortable story you had about yourself. Marcus Aurelius, in the opening pages of his Meditations, listed the people who shaped him, and he was not listing the people who made his life easy. He was listing the people who made him better, which are rarely the same people at all. Thank you for telling me is amor fati in conversation, the recognition that criticism, even hostile criticism, even unfair criticism, carries inside it somewhere a piece of data, information about perception, information about the gap between who you think you are in a room and who the room actually experiences. The Stoics did not sentimentalize feedback. They evaluated it with reason, but they equally recognized that the refusal to receive feedback, the hostility to anyone who offered it, was the most reliable sign of a person who had quietly stopped growing. And for the high-value woman building something real, growth is not optional. It is the entire point. Let me bring this full circle. We started today with one question. What would it feel like to never again be knocked off balance by someone else's words? We have spent this entire video building the answer, not as tricks, not as tactics, but as positions. 10 philosophical positions rooted in Stoic thought that allow you to meet any challenge, any ambush, any attempt to destabilize you from a place of complete interior sovereignty. 1, I may be wrong. 2, silence. 3, that is an interesting perspective. 4, let me think about that. 5, you might be right. 6, what outcome are we both trying to reach? 7, this does not require my reaction. 8, I hear you and I am choosing my response carefully. 9, tell me more. 10, thank you for telling me. These will not become yours because you watched a video. Marcus Aurelius did not write his Meditations because he had mastered Stoicism. He wrote them because he was still practicing every day as emperor, surrounded by war and corruption and loss and plague, holding himself accountable to the person he was still becoming. I want to suggest something for you right now. Choose one of these 10 responses, just one, and use it genuinely once tomorrow, not in a crisis, in an ordinary moment where you feel the old pull toward the reactive, the defensive, the immediate. Choose the Stoic position instead, and then come back and tell me what happened. If this gave you something today, a shift, a question, a new way to see a situation you have been carrying, share it with one woman in your life who is ready to receive it. Hit the like button if this kind of depth is one you want more of, and in the comments, tell me honestly, which of these 10 responses will be the hardest for you to actually live, not understand, live? That is the real question. I will be in the comments reading everyone. Until next time, stay grounded, stay sovereign. And remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself on the mornings when the weight of the world was at its heaviest. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.